Greetings. I am Archbishop Robert E. Wilson Jr. I am the presiding Archbishop of Archdiocese of Polycarp of the Evangelical Episcopal Communion. I'm also the presiding Archbishop Emeritus of Master Circle Christian Fellowship International and the president of Ministry Solution 411. Ministry Solution 411 is an organization designed to help people who have mental issues and mental problems. And that doesn't mean that you're crazy. It means that every problem is a God problem and how he can dwell in the midst of being able for us to be able to solve our mental issues. And today we have mental issues and mental problems in society as well as in the ministry. So tonight, I would like to introduce to you some of our guests, Minister Marty Copeland, Minister Chaplain Benjamin Burnett, and Bishop Dwayne Orlando Moore. And tonight, we're going to have a roundtable on discussion about mental health and what we could do to bring about a solution that we can be able to help people in society as well as in the church. So I'm going to first of all introduce to you Minister Marty Copeland, and I'd like her to share with you about herself.
Absolutely. Thank you, Archbishop. I'm Minister Marty Copeland. I am a licensed minister. Along with that, I am a licensed mental health therapist. I've been a therapist well over 30 years, and at this point, I'm also supervising younger therapists who are getting their credentials. In addition to working with families and individuals in the community and in large businesses, I have partnered with churches and with pastors who realize that the situation is so grave that we have to make sure that all of God's gifts come together to deal with the mental health crisis that is going on right now. So I have the privilege of having the credentials and the Spirit of God in order to address the issues that are coming up.
Amen. Thank you so much. Next, I'd like to introduce to you Chaplain Benjamin Burnett, and Dr. Ben, will you share with us and with our audience, introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Archbishop. I'm glad to be here tonight. Again, Chaplain Dr. Ben Burnett. I've been in the mental health profession for 48 years. I started at the age of 16 and still running strong. I'm a veteran, served 8 years in the United States Army, and I have worked in corrections, jail settings, prison, probation, parole, with male sex offender programs. And I've served with many populations, many environments. Through my local church, I've been the active duty military veteran and dependent family rep for about 38 to 40 years, depending on who's counting. And right now I have, for about the past 4 years, been working as a forensic criminologist. So I'm working with cases with, you name it, organizations such as NCIS, such as the Attorney General's office, such as the district attorney, such as just on and on, the list goes on. And these are agencies that I work with because of my clients, and they are suffering from mental illnesses. And in fact, that's what I've worked for a good portion of my life. It's with those populations who are experiencing severe mental illness. And I have our church, as well as me as an individual, work hand in hand with law enforcement, have been since I was a teenager. Since I was about 18, I started working, and I'm 64, and I've been working with them ever since. And this is just a great opportunity for us to speak on a topic that needs to be addressed.
Well, thank you, Dr. Ben. And then lastly, we have Bishop Dwayne Orlando Moore, and I would like him to introduce himself to our audience.
Greetings, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here at this roundtable. Again, as Archbishop introduced me, I'm Bishop Dwayne Orlando Moore. I've have over 22 years of pastoral experience. Prior to that, I had also 22 years, not simultaneously as the pastoral experience of being in the active duty Air Force, and I retired from that. But during my time in my season within the Air Force, I was exposed to being a certified drug and alcohol counselor, working with family advocacy, also working in child behavior health, adult behavior health. So I have a wealth of experience, and I believe that because I had that experience in my military career, when I became a pastor, I was able to utilize that experience to properly identify where there were mental health issues that were involving with some of the congregation within different parishioners within the church. And so I think it's a very important topic that we, as Ministry Solutions coming together, to be able to discuss and have this roundtable, to be able to discuss the issues, not only just plaguing society, but is actually affecting the church, and how can we really address it within the church, and how can we help pastors? Being a pastor myself, how can we help it? You know, I was one of those ones that didn't think I needed to speak to a therapist or talk to someone about issues that I was dealing with, or trying to help someone else through their issues. And I had to battle those issues myself, because it seems like that if you're talking to somebody about depression then wants to come and tag along with you. So this is a very hot topic that we need to really address in this day and age. And so I'm looking forward to this roundtable with my fellow colleagues here to be able to talk distinctively and concisely in regards to this burning issue.
Thank y'all so much. And, you know, tonight I'd like to discuss with in our roundtable the problem with mental health and the growth of it in society today. Not only in society, but the church is a part of society. And we need to be able to recognize what does it take for us to be able to solve that problem, or to be an asset to help others be able to lead them to different counselors and therapists that the problem, that they can be helped in solving the problem. You know, the first question I'd like to ask, and since this is a round table, so we're gonna go for it. First of all, mental health challenges are on the rise in society today. Can anyone tell me why?
I can speak to that. The statistics vary. We hear anywhere from 1 in 5, 1 in 4 Americans. It's probably even gone down to 1 in 3 Americans who are experiencing a diagnosable mental health disorder. And that's every year. And that makes mental disorders the leading cause of disability in the nation, according to the National Institute of Mental Health. So you partner that with what the Bible has already told us in 2 Timothy 3:1, that we should mark this: in the last days, perilous times will come. So the times are here, and people are affected personally right now, is leading to issues with mental health.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right, Bishop.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, it was 1978. I pretty much remember the year. It was a article in our church paper. This was a statewide paper. And the article read, I still have it. It's like I can still see it in front of me. And there was a psychologist in our church that wrote the article, meaning he said that counseling, a service that Christians need. That was in 1978. So 46 years later, we're just now pretty much starting to address it. I can say that the pandemic helped with that. But a lot of times when we look at society, and you just said it, people in the congregation come from society. It's the same, you know, sometimes when we look at the military, we go, oh, how did they do this or whatever? You know, if there are gang members in society, they're gang members in the military.
Yeah.
There are hate groups in society, they're in the military. Same as churches sometimes, so to speak. So we can't separate that. And I think that's one of the things that's been happening, where, you know, we try to separate the two. You can't. Whatever is in society is going to be in the church. In fact, people are coming to churches now. What I've seen the last 4 years, where I attend and fellowship, they come to church because something's bothering them. and a lot of it are mental health issues. I've had my senior pastor bishop is always referring me people. I mean, it's all the time. It's chronic. And I told him, I said, you know, if we can, I'm not going to mention where we're at, but if we could take that whole city and put them into our local congregation, or even a few thousand, we would be overwhelmed by the mental health issues. Because a lot of times people, they accept Christ and they think that this is where some of the increase is coming. They accept Christ and they think that their problems go away. Well, Jesus is the answer, and he will help us with that. At the end of the day, we still have to deal with some of the things that happen to us in life prior to coming to him. And those can be traumatic experience. They can lead to mental health issues and what have you. Even a positive experience with Christ can bring up issues in our lives.
Bishop Moore, you?
Yes, I want to just say on that, you know, the Bible tells us over in Psalms 34 and 18, it talks about the Lord is near the brokenhearted, and he also saves those who are crushed in spirit. That word crushed, when you think about that, that's someone who's been going through something. When you're crushed, anytime you crush something, it goes through a traumatic process to be crushed. And so this is what we are seeing in society. We're seeing in churches. People are being crushed. They're going through traumatic issues. And I don't think that they found the right modality to be able to properly deal with it. And so we want to be able to not only give them a more excellent way to deal with it, but your mental health matters. You know, God is concerned about us. That's why he tells us to come unto me, all thee that are laboring are heavy laden. You know, if you have those burdens upon you, you can find rest. And who's that rest? And that rest is in Christ. And so one of the things we want to do here and hopefully accomplish tonight is to be able to understand not only the why, but give a solution to how people can receive help, or how pastors and leaders and those that are out there, even family members in a society and community, can be able to properly identify and then be able to get someone help. And I think one of the things is people cry for help, but sometimes we don't recognize the cry.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking about social media. That's one of the things is increased. You know, when we can see things on TV that are happening live, when we can actually see what's happening around the world, when we can see it live, and we didn't have access to that before. You know, they used to show, for me growing up, some of the little clippings of Vietnam. You know, my dad retired from the Navy, but we would be watching the news because we'd see those little clippings. Now, a child can see that. A child can see that on their own cell phone, tablet, just like we're communicating, see it. So the increase in social media means that they can now see more, be exposed to more, and also they can be traumatized more. They can, there's just that the whole realm of social media is just exposing people, human beings, at a lot faster rate. And then if they have questions and those questions don't get answered, you know, they may go to, I saw spiritual advisors. I saw that as one of the things. They might go to seek help from the wrong sources and get the wrong information and end up more messed up than had they just came through the proper channels if it was available.
You know, when I came into the ministry, I've been in it for 45 years, in the church. It was a curse or voodoo for us to even address that someone had mental challenges. Where I grew up in Southeast Washington with St. Elizabeth Hospital was for all those who had mental challenges and mental problems and issues. And most of them, a lot of them were criminal. And and when we address that, well, why people come to church? They come to church because they have a need. and they don't know how to handle that. So Ministry Solution and the things we do is to help them to have the tools to be able to handle that challenge that they are having. It is a lot of times, like as Dr. Ben was sharing, that the social media, most people don't know that the civil rights didn't even change until they saw it on television that people were being beat up and dogs sicked on them. And then that brought on a whole different challenge, a whole different way for people to see these were people who were being abused. And so even today in social media, it seems to be a great, great problem. One of the questions I want to ask you is how can pastors and caregivers and those who are helpers be able to work together in handling mental health challenges?
Well, with that, I'll start by saying it's in realizing that it takes more than one. Able to say, hey, I'm the leader of this church, I'm the leader of this organization, of this company. But since so many people are affected by mental health issues, it takes more than one to address it. And that's why we're having individuals who realize that and say, I've got to partner with the professionals who have been trained for years to deal with this, and partner that with my love for God and love for the people. And once we all work together, we can address it on each side of the map. And to make that our goal, to not just try to handle everything on our own. It's very important.
Yeah. I love what Minister Marty said about partners, that partnership, collaboratives, that's definitely it. There's really no excuse for churches not to be able, and I'm not just going to put it on pastors, but churches not to be able to help their people when it comes to mental health. I'm here in San Diego County. It's a pretty popular place, but I can go to, in any given day, 7 days a week, there are community events and different fairs and things. I can go, and you know what? There are so many people there that are from mental health backgrounds. They're agencies, they're whole agencies, and they have their staff, and they can actually help out. So what I do is I collect a lot of the brochures. I have so many brochures, and I can literally, you can refer people. That's one of the things. We may not, as Mr. Marty said, we may not have all the answers and know it, but there's no reason that we can't find it. The solutions are out there. And part of Ministry Solutions 411 is knowing where these partnerships, where these collaboratives are, and if not, create them. And believe it or not, these agencies, they want us. They want to hear from us. I mean, I just happened just today and yesterday, I reached out to a county board of supervisor. They want to meet with me, talk next week. And it has to do with mental health and things that concern our county and different cities or whatever. So they want these. They want to be able to partner with us. So churches don't have to do this alone. They do not have to do this alone. And no one has every answer. I've been in this industry a long time, if I were to call it that, professional occupation, and I don't know everything. But I do know I can find a lot of things, and I can refer a lot of people. So we don't have to wait for, as I used to see years back, as they said, well, it's demon possession, or it's Johnny's having a bad day, or Susie's having an off day, or whatever. No, these things, we just don't, they may be deeper than what we think, and we need to get the people help in these churches, so that some of these things that we're experiencing, not just in churches, but they're spinoffs. Some of these mass shootings and different things, these come from, if you went to the background of a lot of these people, you're going to see mental health right there underneath.
I'm gonna drop this on Bishop Moore, and because he has pastored and I have pastored. Now in the Bible it says, in the multitude of counsel there's safety, and you're talking about partnership. Then why we don't practice it?
And that's good. And as everyone was answering, Dr. Ben hit it on the head. One of the things, and I'll get to that question, the answer to that question. when he said that one of the things, as depending on denominational beliefs and understanding, it's a lack of education for pastors at times, congregations, churches, to be able to understand real mental health issue versus something that's spiritual. And so everything you so focus on doing whatever the kingdom assignment or doing the things for God that you're called to do, that you don't even think about the aspect of that there's some real life issues that's going on. One of the things that we miss is the life of Jesus, the life of Christ. When he showed us, he went and he dealt with the natural as well as the spiritual. He didn't just deal with the spiritual aspect, but he dealt with the natural aspect and then led the people to the spiritual. And so the Bible even talks about first that which is natural and then that which is spiritual. And so it's a you know, you talking about they have the coin of phrase now, holistic approach. We have to take a holistic approach in looking at what's happening within the body of Christ and the body of believers. And to answer your question, Archbishop, you know, again, because those pastors, as a pastor, you're so focused on taking care of the church, taking care of the people, doing this. You've been called to do this assignment. You're focused. You're just so focused on what you have to do that you kind of separate and isolate yourself, or you don't want to involve others that can possibly help you. Dr. Ben alluded to that there's so much community support, but if you ask the average pastor that's out there, they don't know what that community support is or entails. And that's, again, a lack of understanding or a lack of educating ourselves to, hey, we have people that have real mental health issues, and let's help to deal with that. Here's the resources that are available, but we don't search the resources. Oh, because we understand that God has the answer of everything. The Bible is the answer of everything. Yes, God has the answer. And in the Bible, he directs us to be able to get the help, but we don't utilize the help that he provides for us at times.
Yeah. Well, tell me this: why do caregivers and pastors and spiritual leaders don't take care of themselves, but they take care of everyone else?
Well, I'll jump on that as a pastor, because we have been charged to, you know, you answer the call, you focus on, okay, God, you're using me to be able to take care of your people. And so we're responsible, or we take on this weight and this responsibility, but we got to make sure everybody else is all right. In the meantime, we start to get sick. We start to go through stuff. We start to deal with that. And so we go away and we say, okay, we're just going to pray about it. But God, you know, I'm dealing with this and I'm just going to pray about it. You know, we deal with frustrations. We deal, you know, some will walk around pastoring in silent frustration. They're frustrated. They're angry. They're dealing with their own mental health issues of depression, because they're dealing with so much stuff and the weight of everything. They don't know who to turn to. You know, one of the things that I'll share with this group and those that will be watching, and pastors that are definitely going to watch will definitely understand this sentiment, that being a pastor is a lonely job. It's lonely. You don't have very many friends as pastor, but that's the wrong thing. The Bible clearly talks about one who desires friend must make themselves friendly. And so we have to be out there to be able to trust others, to be able to lean on, to be able to confide in, to be able to glean off. And many times pastors hold their stuff to themselves because they think, remember the old adage, not the old adage that out there, especially, and it's been conveyed and displayed on some of these kind of TV shows where you have some kind of crime and the policeman is trying to go talk to the priest or the clergyman, and all of a sudden it's like hush. They like become the lawyer. Well, no, that's a privilege between the clergy and the parishioner. You know, they confided in me, and yes, I know that they did this, but I can't tell you anything. And that's the kind of mindset that most of us have taken, that we can't share that information. And it's not that you're giving away the person's personal information or things, but you're leading that person. In this day and age, we need to lead that person to the correct help and guide them to seek the correct help, especially if it's something that's over our head. We want to take care of everything, and there's some things that's just definitely over our head or more than what we can be able to handle. And we have to understand there's resources, there's tools, there's people within the congregation. Imagine if you had a bunch of Dr. Burnett's in your congregation, or a bunch of Minister Copelands in your congregation that are already doing it. We as pastors, we have to utilize what God brings to our congregations to be able to help the parishioners. And many times you'll find in churches, that's especially in various settings in churches, that people want to be secretive. Well, I can't let nobody know, so they bring this false facade. They have to have this air or this face behind. They put on a mask to come in to say they don't have problems, but they really do have problems. And so that's, we as pastors, we put on that facade and that face to say, oh no, we the pastor, we can't have no problems. And so we can't convey to the congregation that there's a weakness and we have a problem, or we have an issue that we need to deal with.
Well, you know, I myself, one thing that as Shakespeare would say, to thy own self be true. And if we're going to be a therapist or a counselor, we have to be honest ourselves. You know, when there was if you look in the Bible, when the Spirit of God was walking in the midst of the garden, and Adam heard, and they covered themselves with fig leaves. And when he asked him where was he told him he heard him walking, and he was naked, and that he was afraid. And he asked him the question, who told you you were naked? Well, the same reason why we come to the house of God is because we cover up. You know, even us pastors. There was one time I thought God couldn't do nothing without me, until one day I got so exhausted that when I went to get in the car, I had to back up and jump back because I was getting ready to step in the trunk. But the point is that, and I had to say, well, let me get some rest, and Lord, can you put everything on hold until? But the problem was I neglected my family. I neglected all those who were close to me. I neglected my health, my own well-being, my own health. And just because I was physically athletic and worked out and all those type of things, but spiritually I was bankrupt. But as they say, are we burning bright or are we burning out? And sometimes even we as caregivers have to be able to practice what we preach or teach, and help and use the tools that God has given us so that we could be able to be an asset. If we're worn out and torn down and messed up, how are we going to be able to be an asset to others? So how would y'all address that? Because sometimes we as spiritual leaders, as ministers, as caregivers, period, even counselors. You know what? I know I need a counselor and therapist because I'm deranged.
Right.
Archbishop. So let
me jump on that first, Ben, because I think
okay.
because when it comes to speaking to caregivers, leaders, even ourselves, if you notice, we're in the business of helping others. And one of the main things I've had to tell myself and others that I counsel is self-care is not selfish. And it's important to remember that, because what's happening is we're losing out on balance. We're trying to run the race to get everybody else's stuff done, thus doing what you were saying, just leaving out the care of ourselves. And the Bible is very, very clear about love your neighbor as you love who?
Yourself.
Starts there. Put the oxygen mask on yourself. We've heard that message over and over. Now, with the aging of America and dealing with not only our stuff if we're in leadership, but we got the sandwich generation going on, where we're in the middle of helping aging parents and younger kids going on. So there's a need now to do what we're doing today, which is promote that message of self-care, taking care of yourself so we can be effective as caregivers, as leaders, as ministry leaders, etc. It's all very important. The balance.
Let me ask a question. Should pastor and spiritual leaders have a therapist or counselor?
Yes. Absolutely. So recently I started looking back. I got severely injured while working in the state prison. Now, some people say, oh, well, whatever. Well, but when it costs about $1 million a year for your treatment, and when you have to go and see a doctor or specialist 20 times a month, as I have, it's serious.
Mhm.
And then I started looking at my whole life of just decades of working with those in suffering, those who have been raped, those who have been trafficked. I didn't say I've been a part of that industry of working with people for 23 years, combat human trafficking. You can see that on LinkedIn profile if you want. I don't go beating it down, but it's there. The thing is that God told me it was coming up. It was my birthday. I was 6 weeks. I said, you know what? You haven't taken your own advice. And so I called, that's what I said earlier. I called the VA and they set me up with a therapist. And here's the issue though, and this somebody may want to address it. I wanted a therapist, but the person wasn't a Christian therapist.
Mhm.
And I thought that what this therapist was going to be able to help me with, which this therapist, and I'm not going to say he or she is a total expert. However, I didn't finish the sessions and stuff, and I terminated them. And so now that's because I'm looking for, Archbishop, a Christian therapist. So there may be somebody who on this roundtable can elaborate on that. But what also happens is the trauma, the secondary trauma, the third level of trauma, that's us. That's anyone who is in the helping profession, and even public servants. I was with a public servant today, and I complimented both of them. I said, I thank you for your outstanding service. I wrote the little cards for the supervisor. I said, because they're seeing the masses come in. And they chose that. Yes, that's their profession, their career, but they're getting hit. And that's the same thing. What I mean is traumatized and re-traumatized, and they see all the people's problems, police officers, firefighters, they see everyone, nurses, they see it. And we saw that during the pandemic. A lot of the occupations that we didn't even think really focus on, teachers and whatever, people delivering food, we now see that they're important. But I do want to say that maybe someone can address that, because I'm looking for, probably I'll go to a Christian psychologist or therapist for what I need. But I won't.
I'm glad you said it. It's important to state your need. If we go to a restaurant, we don't settle for one food when they said on the menu they were going to give us the other. We declare this is what we need. So when it comes to pastors, I say, yes, they need therapy as well. Why? Pastors may feel isolated, may feel a lot of burdens. We're piling all this burden, everybody coming to you saying, Pastor, I need you. Pastor, can you do this? We're doing a lot of running around trying to fix other people when being overloaded in a lot of situations. And as we know, pressure bursts pipes. So it goes back to what we were saying. It's okay to say, in order for me to be effective as your leader, I got to make sure I'm healthy, mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, all parts of that, in order to make sure we're effective in ministry.
That's so true. Sometimes, and we deal with so much as pastors, I would say, venture to say, and submit this, that many pastors are probably suffering with PTSD. And I'll just say that, well, being in the military, I was exposed to some things and different things I saw and I witnessed. And, I said, I would just pray about it, give it to the Lord, because my faith is strong and this. And so I just thought I was good. And I didn't realize until something later in life triggered or caused those things to come back up. And then finally came to the understanding, wow, I had PTSD all this time and did not even realize it. And so, yes, seeking help. Here's one of the big things with pastors, and this is a stickler with church leaders, pastors. Can I go to my pastor or my bishop, my leader, and trust them that what I'm going to convey to them, that I'm dealing with this issue, is going to be something in confidence between, or now I come to church and or come to service or come to a meeting. Now all the other leaders and everybody whispering and looking at me kind of weird and crazy because that leader that I thought I could trust had now voiced it to someone else because that leader couldn't handle it. So we have to have a love that we can trust. We have to have leaders that we can trust, that we can go to them confidently and say, and that's why, again, I'll go back to educating ourselves, that any of my pastors, any bishops or anybody who comes to me, they have to know that when they speak it to me and I can provide them the help that I can get them, or I can direct them to the help. Now, it's highly important that you have somebody, and I understand what you're saying, Dr. Burnett, in regards to Christian counselor, because the counselor that I saw, of course, he was a VA psychologist. And, you know, I'll just be honest with you, I toyed with him. Because I know behavior health, I toyed with him. I said, yeah, doc, you know, yeah. And then he thought because he was going down this way, I said, well, no, I understand what you're saying, but, you know, and I just led him the way I wanted to go. So it wasn't really helpful. It was helpful when I went and actually I talked to one of my sisters who is an actual licensed. She has her own practice. She's a licensed mental health therapist, just like Minister Copeland. And when I talked to her, she gave me some tools. And I was like, oh, I never thought about that. Okay, good. And so, yes, biblical based. She gave me some tools, both, you know, psychological things that I could be able to use. And I said, oh, okay, all this time I thought I had it, but I really didn't. And so now, thank you for giving me those tools. Now I can be able to help myself become more healed.
You know, I really like what you're saying on that, because right now I'm dealing with since December 3rd, I've been dealing with Department of the Navy, with service members, mental health issues. And you know, it's really something. If you're on a sub of 100, you're on a ship of 700, I'm gonna tell you what happens to those service members. All of their mental health issues was broadcast. And if we remember back in, this is important because I'm going somewhere with this, also the military, law enforcement, it was a time where if they made it known where they had a mental health issues, they were not going to be promoted.
It was taboo. They're
going to get blackballed. But you know what? I wonder how many ministers believe that also. But the same thing is that it also applies culturally. There's some, I'm getting a little deep now, there's some, maybe because of our cultural beliefs or values, whatever, we might not feel it's okay to seek mental health. And I would like for someone at the round table to really speak about that and address it, because I'm telling you, I remember growing up, I remember the Baptist church I attended, and I remember people dealing with mental health issues. They said, no, we don't put that aside. We don't talk about that. And next thing you know, a few years later, it blew up. And I'll tell you where people ended up getting help. And I worked in corrections and forensics. That's where they got their help. Is once they lost it because of mental health issues, not taking the medication or whatever, not going to therapy. And by the way, if you're going to do it, you need both, not just mental health meds.
Because you have physical, chemical imbalances too.
Right.
You know.
One of the things we are required to do in our counseling practices is to provide disclosure agreements, confidentiality agreements, and that definitely could or should be incorporated in the church, especially if ministers are going to do some of the counseling. If they are going to do, then there's got to be some confidentiality. We can't, if we're going to be effective to even be leaders, we can't be scared that what we say in this office is going to be next Sunday's sermon title.
Right.
So that kind of stuff, you know, if there is a area that we've got to make sure we address, is certainly that.
And one thing that's very important, I'm sorry, one thing very important, because this is what happened to me as pastor. When I referred people to our professional person who was a Christian counselor, what we did, we set up a cabinet where she had the key and she locked those particular notes that she had during those sessions that she was doing them at the church. She locked them in that cabinet. Who had access to them? She had access to them. Even me being a pastor, I didn't have access to them. However, my questions to her were, is there anything on the spiritual side that I need to address? Because we tag team. I dealt with any spiritual issues, dealing with faith or dealing with their understanding of what's happening with them in regards to God's word, to how to help on that instance. And then she dealt with the mental health issues, the things, the stress issues, the life issues, the stuff that she was dealing with. And so it worked out really well, because what we did is we provided a counseling session for everyone. Hey, listen, come and sit down and talk. And whatever was, and again, the confidentiality, this is not getting back to the pastor. It's just between you and me, and your stuff is going to be, any notes I take is going to be locked up. The pastor doesn't have access to them. I have access to them. And then we're going to follow the procedures and destroy these by shredding these records up at that point in time. If you leave the church and go to somewhere else or whatever, we'll destroy these after so much time having it. And so, yes, that was all in disclosure. And again, when people can trust that, because, and then as Minister Marty said, it was nothing that I brought over the pulpit, or none of the other preachers brought over the pulpit, because nobody else knew. Now I possibly knew who was being seen, or sometimes I didn't know who was being seen. I just let that happen. And the people knew that this is a person that you can go to if you need some help or assistance. Some I did refer, so I know that they was being seen. But again, if it was something that I didn't have to deal with, then I let them deal with that professionally. And I dealt with keeping them focused on their Christian understanding and their biblical understanding of what they need to do to be a well-rounded Christian.
Okay.
And I like what you're saying.
I have two, after you, Dr. Ben, I got two questions I want to ask for us to close out, because I know we could talk about mental health, but I want to address two questions, but I'm gonna let Dr. Ben, and this is gonna be on we done talk about spiritual leaders. I want to talk about something else. Okay, go ahead, Dr. Ben.
You know, one of the things that I was really, during the pandemic, in fact, it was, I'll put a plug in front of them. It was Light University and American Association of Christian Counselors. They launched this mental health coaching program because of the need was so great, as we all know, in the nation. But here's another thing that I have to say. It's okay to be, and I really want to hear this from Minister Marty, because people can be licensed, they can be a coach, they can be certified, but make sure you know, if I'm referring someone, I need to know me and feel confident who I'm referring them to. In the same way is that we need to know that the Bible says try the spirits to see if they're God. Because when we look on some of the social media, everybody is a mental health coach. Almost. I put that disclaimer there, just about, and everybody wants to hang a shingle, and I didn't mention, I'll say it here, I have probably about 200 certifications, and I do those, and I'll say this for Bishop Moore, because I'm 100% disabled, because I'm a veteran, a lot of it I don't pay for. I get these, and people say, well, why do you keep getting all these certifications going? Because I can, and I love what I do, and I like to be great. I like to be great at what I do. I don't want to be okay. So when we're referring our clients, handing them off, we want to refer them to some who's competent, who has a background that's going to help them and be able to keep their confidentiality.
Yes.
Well, were you going to answer that?
Minister Marty, that was to you.
Minister Marty, did you? You were good with that?
Absolutely. Very, very, very good with that.
Okay. Here's the subject matter that I want for us to address before we close out. Is even among our young adults and children, mental health is extremely high in our society today, and as well as in the church. Can you address why is it so increasingly high?
Well,
think
I would say the youth as well as adults are looking for answers. All the statistics that talk about loneliness and isolation. One of the statistics that really intrigued me was the loneliness and isolation was higher in one survey amongst the youth than the older adults. So it still boils down to looking for real life answers as opposed to turning to substance abuse, gang activity. It's the whole thing of there being a void to deal with the stressors and the isolation and the loneliness that's there. And here again is where the church has an opportunity to not only say, come on in, but when you come on in, we've got to deal with where you are. Every aspect of your needs as youth, we've got to have focused groups that can target youth and where they are struggling, and to be able to comfortably deal with that. We talked about the aging of America, or the aging of the church is causing a divide between communication between the two groups. So that there's a drastic need to address that, because yes, the impact is being felt amongst the youth.
I'm thinking about looking for love in all the wrong places.
Mhm.
And that's just what I was going
vulnerable.
yeah, the substance abuse, when people, they're looking. And I remember I saw some studies on it last year, and it was talking about how, oh my goodness, like it was like the dating side, that people are just looking. They're just looking and searching. But you know what? That is also, as Mr. Marty said, if we had life groups, if we had support groups, and you know what? That could also be a mental health group. Or we may want to refer them to an appropriate mental health or substance abuse. See what I mean? There's roles that we can play, that we can do in the church. And here's my issue though: the 20/80 rule in America. So there's 100 adults at a local church. 20 of them are doing 80% of the work. That's another thing that leads to burnout. And some of that is because we have not trained and taught and mentored, as Minister Marty said, some of these coming up. And so now we have this divide. We've lost, as some said, 2 generations. There's this divide. And we have to address that, because if we don't, someone else will. And a lot of times it does. At the end of the day, it ends up to mental health challenges. And once a person is sort of like, I was working with, like I said, with the military, I said, this person could be traumatized. Then if that's not dealt with in time, and I think they say about 72 hours, at least get some help on the spot, or 72 hours is what I've been reading. At least, and Marty, you may know, or one of you may know, but I've read 72 hours or less. Then that trauma can become to post-traumatic stress disorder. Then it could go over to complex PTSD. When it hits complex PTSD, that's what a lot of them we're seeing pop up in our churches now. And this is what I've seen since about May of 2020. I'm talking about in church, where people are coming, as you said, Archbishop, they're looking for answers, and they're already at that stage of complex PTSD. And then let's add the substance abuse. Let's add let's say the schizophrenia, those suffering from schizophrenia or bipolar, where there's a chemical imbalance. We've got something on our hands then. We've got something on our hands. So I believe that what we're doing tonight, what we've been doing, is making an impact. And I'm really proud of Ministry Solutions 411 that you brought me, guys, that sort of took me in and drafted me into the fold. And we're looking forward to helping a lot of people.
Yeah. And any final remarks or comments before we close out?
I just say this, roundtables like this, things like this are helpful for church leaders, pastors, and even those out there in the Christian community. One of the things, in many, we have said it tonight, and I just want to address the issue of your question also in regards to the young people. Many times, because of how society has tried to construct the value system in a home environment, that parents no longer know how to parent, or they feel that parenting is parenting in a different way, and so they are not addressing any mental health, potential mental health issues that are being caused by a child that may be getting bullied, and they're now dealing with depression. They don't know how to handle it, and so then they're getting advice from their peers, and their peers are handling it by getting advice from, as Dr. Ben alluded to, you have these social media mental health experts, or what they call themselves, and they get them totally bad advice, and then it leads to, you got drug use and alcohol and these other things, and it's really a cry for help. And what's happening is the parents, because they have not educated themselves as parenting. Parenting is just not because of what you saw grandma do, grandpa do, your mother do, and all that. Parenting is an evolving process because the children are exposed to different things than what we grew up with. And so we have to be educated. One of the things that I always did as a parent is I wanted to be educated on what my children were exposed to, because I couldn't protect them from everything that they saw, everything they heard, even though you tried. So let me understand what you're being exposed to, and then let me get an understanding of why you like this, because they have connotations to the things that you like, and it can be gateways to certain things. And then that's when you educate and train your children to be able to understand what it is they're exposing themselves to, and that will help to eliminate some of those issues they have. So I think that one of the things that we have to face is to be able to not only help our younger folks, and as you said, generations are being lost, we have to redirect their focus to understand, listen, self-care is okay. I think some are becoming self-aware of self-care because it's being promoted a little bit more than what a generation before promoted. But awareness in who you are, not only who you are in Christ, but who you are as an individual, and to be able to understand who God wants you to be. And once we can be able to teach them and train them in those aspects, then they can be more well-rounded in who they are as a person, versus running to every wind and wave of doctrine or things that's out there and thinking that's it. And so we can keep them on the right path.
Yeah. Well, Minister Marty, where you going? Say something before we close out.
Absolutely. I was thinking while Bishop Moore was speaking about the many times I've heard us adults say they when we refer to the youth, and the importance of just opening our minds and opening our hearts to at least listen to the problem. I know when we deal with any kind of crisis, the first step is finding out the problem from the person who is experiencing the problem. So as opposed to jumping to judgment and, they'll never change, and, it's going to be an issue that you people have to deal with. This is where the church, where we as Ministry Solutions has an opportunity to be the answer by modeling that we're not going to do a they mindset. We're not going to have a they mindset. We're going to have a we. And we deal with this together. It's we mindset. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
I want to thank all of you for being with me tonight, and for those who hear us and listen to this or watch this video. I pray that these are all my colleagues, and we draw from each other, and we help each other, just like we counsel others. We sometimes be counseled by each other ourselves. So the main thing is that we are here, that you can be able, that we thrive on, that you have a love that you can trust, that you can have confidentiality in any problem or situation that you may be going through. And Ministry Solution is designed just for that. And I pray that something that was said tonight will be encouraging to you. But this is our first roundtable of counselors and therapists in Ministry Solutions 411. And I pray that anything that we can do to be a help to you, you could go to our website and that we could be get in touch with us, and we'd be more than glad to be a help. One of the things I like to share with pastors that we get so busy and whatnot is that we think that we have to take care of God's church. It's his church. He'll take care of it. You just are under shepherd, and you have to count on him and take care of your family, of yourself, and those and your loved ones. And we have to be mindful of that. And whatever you do, let us all reach out to our young people because they're so vulnerable and open to so many things, and they need to go to find the right answer for the right solution for their lives. With mental health challenges today are growing so rapid. So I hope that in our endeavors that we be able to impact other people's lives. I want to thank all of you for tonight, and I pray and I hope that God continue to keep his hand on you, because see, God ain't got to get you. All he got to do is take his hand off you, and all hell will break loose. May God bless you and heaven smile upon you.
Amen. And also our website, if you desire to get more information, is www, the word ministry, the word solutions, all one word, and the number 411.org. That's MinistrySolution411.org. God bless you.
God bless you.